Good morning, everybody, and happy Mother's Day to everybody. It is Sunday, May 10th. It is a beautiful day here in Zone 5B, the southwest suburbs of Chicago, Illinois, and I am David A. coming at you with some planting today. We are finally hitting the weather here in the southwest suburbs of Illinois, where we can get some of our items in the ground in buckets because our daytime temperatures are going to be in the 70s and overnight we're still going to be in the 50s. So I am trying to get some of my peppers in the ground this morning and take advantage of all this beautiful weather. So I do have them laid out. But before we get started, I wanted to talk to you guys about the process. So human bodies, in order to grow, need protein and carbohydrates and fats to fuel our body and to help us grow big and strong. Plants are really similar to us. They also have three big ingredients that they need to grow. And these are known as nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So just about any item that you buy to put in your garden, whether it's fertilizer or feed or amendments, will have these three numbers written on them, known as the N, the P, and the K number. If you don't see it written on the front, you'll see it listed in the ingredients on the back. 1400. Each of those ingredients play a special part in the growth of the plant. Nitrogen is needed for vegetative growth and for chlorophyll production and photosynthesis. So it's really important at the beginning of a plant's life cycle. Phosphorus is really good for the root development and the overall health of the plant, and potassium is good for the fruiting and the flowering of the plant. So all three of those are needed by plants, but in different levels throughout the season. As gardeners, a lot of times we will add a granular fertilizer like my Burpees tomato and veg. This is a slow release fertilizer, so we'll mix it into the soil, but it's not immediately bioavailable for the plants. So it needs to be broken down by microbes in the soil, and such it'll feed over the next few months. But what do we do if we want our plants to have something immediately available? Then we go to some of the soil amendments like a bone meal or a blood meal or a rock phosphate for phosphorus to give it those nutrients immediately to help it get off to a fast start. Now, do you have to do this? Absolutely not. You can really get away with getting potting soil or putting your plants in the ground, giving them a Miracle Grow or a liquid fertilizer that'll feed them right away, and it kind of makes things a little down and dirty, fast and simple. But over the long term, adding these amendments can help your plant grow, help it stay evenly growing throughout the season, and hopefully give you nice, big, lush plants with lots of fruits and vegetables. So if you take a look at my garden, you will see that I have it gridded out. And I garden by the square foot gardening method. In square foot gardening, you do measure out your garden bed like I just did into square feet, and this helps with the plant spacing. I would highly recommend using a gardening app. I use the Planter app that I got out of the Google Play Store, and it will let you lay out your entire garden, and it will tell you the recommendations for each plant. Generally speaking, peppers, you grow one per square foot. A ground cherry, for example, you're supposed to grow one in a 4 square foot radius. So if you overcrowd your plants, they might still grow, but they're probably not going to grow as well as if they are properly spaced. Recently, there's been a lot of people who say that peppers are one of those plants that actually like to hold hands while they're growing. And this means that instead of doing one per square foot, you can put two pepper plants of the same variety in that same square foot, giving you more real estate to plant in. And that's what I'm going to do here. So I have all my pepper plants. I have been hardening these off this past week. Hardening them off, again, is the process of getting them used to the strength of the sun and the UV radiation so they don't get sun scald or sunburn, just like we do when we go out without protection. I am going to get these planted in the ground. In order to give them that extra boost, I will be adding a little bit of my worm castings that you've seen me use on some of my trees before. I will throw a little rock phosphate in the hole to give them an extra shot of that phosphorus. And then they will also get just a handful of the tomato and veg, slow release fertilizer, and some bone meal and some blood meal. And again, this is all just designed to get it established, get those roots growing, and hopefully get these growing really, really fast. On my garden bed, because we are still so early in the season, I do have a hoop house with some gardening plastic on there. I will keep an eye on the temperature over the next few weeks to a month. And if we have a night that's going to drop below 50 temperature-wise, I can close the hoop house and help keep these peppers warm. Peppers do really like warm temperatures, and they thrive in the heat of the summer. So in order to get them growing fast, we will keep an eye on that, and we will close that as necessary. So I am going to show you guys how I'm going to get these planted. So we are going to start with this one right here. This is a hammock sweet pepper. I'm not a huge fan of peppers, ironically enough, but I do love growing them. Hammock, this is the first year that I will be growing a hammock pepper. I did do the bananas and the bells and the habaneros and the jalapenos last year. I actually don't have any habaneros or jalapenos to put in the ground just yet, so I am saving some open space for those because I am trying to get some starts going for them. Grab my gardening tools. And what we're going to do, roughly in the center of this hole, is I'm going to dig a hole that's big enough for the current root ball that the pepper is in. With most plants, when you're transplanting them into the ground or into your container or wherever you're putting them, you want to bury them at approximately the same depth that you had them growing in. Tomatoes are a little different, and when I go to pot my tomatoes up, you'll hear me say that again, and I will show you the process of planting your tomatoes a little bit deeper, because even though tomatoes and eggplants and peppers are all in the same family, they do have some different characteristics that help them grow. So we're going to add just a scoop of that rock phosphate. Again, it's going to give it an extra shot of phosphorus. We're going to add some bone meal. And the bone meal that I've been using, this Earth Science, is a 2-17-0. So it's 2% nitrogen, 17% phosphorus, and no potassium in there. And then we'll add some blood meal to give it that extra nitrogen boost, because again, especially early in the season, nitrogen is really big for plants to try to get that lush green development and photosynthesis going strong. And then a handful of the tomato and veg slow release fertilizer. I am going to try to keep the name tag in there. I'll probably lose it as the season goes along, but that will help me remember what I've got growing. So this is a pretty good looking plant. I grew this from seed indoors under my grow lights. It has been hardened off over the last week or so. And what you want to do is tap the container a little bit to get the whole root ball to come out. It does look really, really good. It doesn't look root bound. The roots are looking really healthy. This year, for the first time, I am trying to dust the roots with a little mycorrhiza inoculant that's supposed to help keep the roots healthy and get them off to a good start. And again, a lot of gardening is trial and error. I recommend finding a gardening channel that you like, whether it be mine or any of the other amazing gardening channels out there. I like Next Level Gardening with Brian Lowell. I love Down Home Backyard Gardening with Chad down in Texas, the Millennial Gardener who's up in Michigan. Or no, sorry, Millennial Gardener is in South Carolina. M.I. Gardener up in Michigan. Hollis and Nancy's Homestead down in Florida. There's a ton of really good resources. So find whatever program you like, the one that resonates with you the most, the one that makes most sense to you, and try things the way they do, or try things on your own and see what works for you, because all of our growing zones are going to be a little different. Even if you're in zone 5B, that's a very, very large, diverse area. So what works for me might not work the same for you. So in this square, I'm actually going to try the handshake method. So I'm going to put 2 of the same plants in here. These are Blott, B-L-O-T-T peppers. They are a sweet pepper with a really cool variegated look. So they have a color variation once they grow. I heard about this pepper while watching the Pepper Geek YouTube channel, which is another great channel. Especially if you're going to grow peppers. They do specialize in peppers, but they do have a second channel that covers other types of plants. We're going to add some of that slow release fertilizer, some of our rock phosphate, a little of our blood meal in the hole, and then a little of our bone meal in the hole. Now, a lot of people, when they're gardening, will wear gloves. These are chemicals, even though a lot of them are natural. Bone meal does come from ground up animal bones, blood meal from dehydrated blood products. But for me, I like to be able to feel what I'm doing. I like to feel the ground, feel the earth, feel the ingredients, the products that I'm using. And we're going to do the same thing with this pepper. Just kind of squeeze the container to get the pepper out. Again, this has a really healthy looking root ball. You can see the roots on there really well. We're going to sprinkle just a little bit of that mycorrhiza inoculant. And then we're going to backfill and pack it down pretty well. We want the root ball and those roots to be making good, solid contact. And I am going to plant a second Blott pepper just a few inches away here to see if maybe they will help. And the theory behind the handshake thing is, while peppers like hot weather, they are also subject to sun scald when the sun in the summer temperatures get really, really hot. So placing them close together will allow the pepper plants to shade each other. They can lean on each other, protect each other from the sun a little bit, and it should also help with pollination since they're so close to each other. So we're going to add a little rock phosphate in there. Add a little bit of our slow release tomato and veg. So I am giving these tomato and veg to begin with. That is a slow release fertilizer, but throughout the season, I will also add some water soluble fertilizers that I can water in the plants with. And this year I'm using Jack's Triple 20, which is one of the products that was really recommended by Millennial Gardener down in South Carolina. So same thing, I'm going to sprinkle just a little bit of that mycorrhiza inoculant on the root ball. Put that in the ground and then backfill around it. So I am going to continue this with the rest of the peppers I have laid out here. And when I'm finished, I will bring you guys back to see the finished product. Right, we are back. I did get all of the peppers up potted nicely. This is the marigold that I've had in the garden for a couple of weeks now. So all my peppers are in there. I do have some open spaces because I do want to get some jalapenos, probably a habanero, and some Jimmy Nardello peppers in there as well. The other thing that I wanted to get potted in the ground today be my strawberry ground cherries. Up until last year, I had never even heard of a ground cherry, but because I dove headfirst into gardening, I really wanted to try a lot of different things that I'd never heard of or tried before. Ground cherries was probably the biggest surprise that I had. I grew a regular version. I think it's the Aunt Molly's ground cherry, and they were amazing. They grow into a bush that was probably about 3 feet tall, and they grow these little bitty berries in husks. They're called ground cherries because once those berries are ripe, they actually fall off of the plant and onto the ground, and then you can pick them up and you eat them. They have a very unusual flavor to them, very tropical. Most people said a mix of like strawberry and maybe pineapple. So this year I wanted to try growing a different variety. So I have this monster, which is a strawberry ground cherry. I did have some pineapple ground cherries as well, but I don't think those seeds were any good. So we're just going to have the strawberry one this year. It's going to get put in the ground in the exact same way, with the exception of spacing. Because this does grow into such a big bush, you want 4 squares reserved for it. So we're going to put it right about here in the middle. But the process for planting it is going to be pretty much the same. We're just going to dig a hole that's going to be big enough. And again, with most plants, you want the planting hole to be the exact same size. You don't want to bury it any deeper because that can cause rot on the plant. So it's nice to check out your sizing, and that's going to be about right for it. We're going to add the same stuff. A handful of the slow release fertilizer. What I forgot on my first few pepper plants, a handful of worm castings. And then a little blood meal, which again, that's the one that's high in nitrogen. And then a little bone meal. I'm not going to do a handful of the rock phosphate in here. I do it with peppers because I heard that they are voracious eaters of phosphorus, but I did not hear that about ground cherries. So we're going to try not adding it. The other thing that you want to do when it comes time to start getting your plants in the ground, and I'll show you on my peppers, you want to remove any of the low leaves that are really close to the ground, because most of the diseases that plants are going to get are going to be soil-borne diseases that they can get when you water and it gets splashed up onto the plant. So if you remove some of the lowest leaves, it can help keep your plant a little healthier. With this one, with it being such a big, lanky plant, I am going to get a stake in here and get it staked up so it's a little bit higher off the ground. When you're removing leaves, it's okay to remove leaves, but you do want to make sure that you leave at least 4 or 5 leaves to aid in photosynthesis. So I will get a stake here so we can get this one propped up a little bit, and then I will move. We're going to water it and see how it looks. Right now it's really droopy because it needs watering. And I think that is what we wanted to do in the garden today, everybody. We got our peppers in there. We did save spaces so we can add some more as I get them started. I'm going to put my name tag in there because I am notorious for forgetting what I planted. Just one other quick word about seeds. If you go to buy seeds, and you're buying them especially from a gardening store, you will see some may say heirloom or open pollinated, and others will say hybrid. Hybrid are variants that we have grown to make them less susceptible to diseases or more cold tolerant. So it's great for growing your plants. But what it means is if you grow a pepper from a hybrid seed, like my First Taste hybrids I have over there, and you save the seed and try to plant them because you really liked that fruit and that plant, you will not get the same type of vegetable the following year. With hybrid plants, they don't grow true to form like that. With an heirloom, especially like heirloom tomatoes, I think is probably the biggest spot you see heirlooms. Those you can save the seeds from your fruit, grow them, and you should have the exact same type of plant with the exact same results that you did this year. But with hybrids, you can't do that. So it does pay to pay attention to whether or not you're planting hybrids or heirlooms. So that is my morning gardening routine. I do hope to get tomatoes in by the end of this week so we can take advantage of this beautiful weather. I will post a video if I do that so you can see how tomatoes can be planted deeper. That's especially helpful if you have a really long, tall plant, but it's not necessary. You don't have to plant them deeper either. So I think this is good morning's work. We got quite a few things. It's nice to see the garden finally taking shape. That's one of the bad things about Zone 5B here. All of my friends down in Texas and California and the Carolinas, Florida, have had their stuff in the ground. They're actually getting tomatoes and peppers already, and we're just now getting ours in the ground up here in Zone 5B. But hopefully over the season, we will have great results. Stay tuned. I will keep you guys all updated, whether it succeeds or fails. I want to share it with all of you. If you like my content, make sure you hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. It helps out my channel. Tell your friends. Share my channel. Share my videos. If nothing else, hopefully you guys think it's funny and you can get something out of it. And I hope everybody has a glorious Sunday. Get out, enjoy the weather if it's decent by you. Don't forget to call all the mothers in your life, whether they be fur baby mothers or mother mothers, and wish them a happy Mother's Day. Get out, enjoy the weather, get your hands dirty, and go grow something. I hope to see you guys all here real soon on Come Grow with David A. Happy Mother's Day.